This story is about a struggling single mother who walks into a high-powered company just hoping for a second chance at life. With no fancy clothes, no connections, and nothing but determination in her heart, she faces humiliation, judgment, and rejection from people who think she doesn't belong. But hidden among them is someone she least expects, someone quietly observing, quietly testing, and quietly holding the keys to a future she never imagined. What happened next, no one could have believed. It was just another Monday. Or at least, that's how it looked from the outside. Inside a worn-down daycare center, with cracked walls and flickering lights, 26-year-old Emily Carson knelt to tie her 4-year-old son Liam's shoes. Her hands shook slightly, not from the cold, but from nerves. She was down to her last $14 in the bank. The lights at home had flickered too, not just the daycares, and she didn't know how many more meals she could stretch out of 2 boxes of pasta and a can of soup. But today she had an interview. A glimmer of hope. She stood up, brushed imaginary lint off her coat, a thrift store find 2 sizes too big, and kissed Liam on the forehead. "I'll be back before nap time, okay?" He nodded sleepily. "You gonna get the job today, Mama?" Emily smiled, forcing herself to believe it too. "I hope so, baby." She didn't have a car, so she jogged half a mile to the bus stop in flats that slapped against the sidewalk. By the time she made it downtown, her blouse was damp from rain and nerves. She took a deep breath and stepped into the marble lobby of Ellison and Knox Technologies, a rising tech firm with a reputation for being sleek, fast-paced, and cutthroat, and way out of her league. But Emily had done her homework. She'd taken free online courses, prepped answers to possible questions, and even memorized names of the company's leadership team. What she didn't know was that one of them was about to meet her, dressed as an intern. Upstairs, Ryan Ellison, the 32-year-old co-founder of the company, leaned back in his chair in the employee lounge. Tall, quiet, and often mistaken for someone far younger, he'd grown tired of hearing what employees thought the execs wanted to hear. That morning, he'd walked into the office in jeans and a hoodie, leaving behind his title, his assistant, and his schedule. He wanted to sit in on a round of interviews, anonymously. No one in HR would tell the candidates who he really was. That was the plan. He was curious what people were really like when they thought they were speaking to just another intern. Back in the interview room, Emily waited quietly. Around her, other candidates in sleek suits scrolled through their phones or chatted confidently. No one talked to her. She didn't mind. She wasn't here to impress them. She was here to change her life. When her name was called, she stood, smoothed her clothes again, and walked in. There were 2 people seated at the table. A woman in her 40s with a clipboard, clearly HR, and a young man wearing a plain hoodie and sneakers, sipping coffee. "Hi, Emily," the woman smiled. "Please, have a seat. This is Jordan. He's one of our interns, helping with today's interviews." Ryan, or Jordan, gave her a polite nod. "Hey." Emily smiled nervously. "Nice to meet you both." What followed should have been a standard interview. But it wasn't. Because while the HR rep was asking about her resume, Jordan was watching her closely. Not in a judging way. In a listening way. The kind of listening people do when they're actually paying attention. Emily didn't have the most polished resume. She was honest about that. "I don't have a college degree," she admitted. "But I've worked 2 jobs at once. I've taught myself coding in Python and Java through free platforms. I built a website from scratch for the bakery I work part-time at, and I've raised a child by myself since I was 22. The HR rep scribbled something. Jordan's head tilted slightly. "Wait, you coded a website yourself?" She nodded. "It's nothing fancy, but it has a shopping cart and mobile view. Took me 2 weeks, mostly at night." "That's impressive," he said before catching himself. "I mean, cool. For someone self-taught, I mean." Emily smiled for the first time. "Thanks." The HR rep moved on to another question, clearly sticking to the script. But Jordan kept asking follow-ups. Not the kind you get from people scanning your resume. The kind you get from someone who's genuinely curious. What made you want to work in tech? What's something you built that you're proud of, even if no one else noticed? What's the biggest problem you solved for someone and how? Emily lit up, talking about her projects, her late nights, the tiny victories that felt like mountains to her. She felt like she was seen for once. After 30 minutes, the HR rep stood and extended her hand. Thank you, Emily. We'll be in touch. Emily stood too. Thank you both. Really. As she walked out of the room, she felt something stir. Not just hope, possibility. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was less than. She felt like she might actually belong. She didn't know who Jordan really was. She didn't know he watched her walk out the door with a furrowed brow and a look that said, I need to know more about her. Because something about that girl, that poor single mom in an oversized coat, had just changed everything. Maya sat stiffly on the worn leather chair in the waiting area, nervously smoothing the creases of her slacks, the only decent pair she owned. Around her, whispers floated like perfume from the other candidates. Someone had worked at Deloitte. Another just wrapped up an MBA. A third casually mentioned their uncle was on the company's board. Maya kept her eyes low. She didn't belong here, at least that's what the room kept telling her. Inside the glass-paneled interview room, executives lined the long oak table. And seated quietly at the end, pretending to jot down notes on a clipboard, was the intern, the same man who had helped her pick up her resume earlier. His name was Nathaniel Grant, CEO of Grant Technologies, and currently in the middle of a month-long undercover initiative to learn how his company operated from the inside. No one in the building knew. Not HR. Not the managers. Not the candidates. Nathaniel had grown tired of reports and filtered emails. He wanted to see the truth. So he slipped on a $40 pair of shoes, left his tailored suits behind, and reintroduced himself as Nate, a college intern assisting the hiring team. As Maya stepped into the interview room, the lead recruiter sighed visibly and shot a glance at the others. Miss Carter, she said, flipping through her resume. You worked retail and customer service? Maya nodded, already feeling the heat rise in her cheeks. Tell us, another interviewer said flatly, why do you think you're a good fit for a strategic communications role with no formal background? Nathaniel watched closely. Maya paused. Her hands trembled slightly in her lap, but when she finally spoke, her voice was calm, almost too calm. Because I know how to talk to people who don't want to listen, she said. I've sold winter coats to people who swore they weren't buying anything. I've de-escalated screaming customers, negotiated returns with no receipts, and once convinced a man not to shoplift by offering to buy him lunch instead. There was a silence in the room. The lead recruiter chuckled, not kindly. Well, that's colorful, but I think we're looking for something a little more sophisticated. Maya's heart sank. She knew that tone. She'd heard it at banks, at school meetings, in courtrooms. The unspoken no behind the polite smile. But Nathaniel was still watching. After the interviews, Maya stepped into the hallway, unsure whether to cry or laugh. She was about to head for the exit when Nathaniel caught up to her. He hesitated a moment, then said, Hey, Maya, right? She turned. Yeah, I know I'm just the intern, he said, lowering his voice, but I thought you were great in there. Maya blinked, caught off guard. You do. Yeah, you were real and sharp. They didn't see it, but I did. For the first time in days, she smiled small, but real. Then he added, Hey, if you don't mind, can I ask you something kind of weird? She tilted her head. Sure. Would you be open to shadowing me for a week? Just around the office. I think there's more we can learn from each other. She stared at him. Why? Nathaniel shrugged. Call it a hunch. What Maya didn't know, what no one knew, was that Nathaniel had made up his mind the moment she told that story about the shoplifter. He didn't just see potential in her. He saw someone who had something most of his executives lacked: empathy, guts, and street-level wisdom. But before he made any decisions, he wanted to see how far she'd go, and who she'd be when no one was watching. And what unfolded next would leave the entire company stunned. The week that followed felt surreal to Maya. She wasn't an intern, yet she found herself seated in meetings with some of the company's highest-ranking executives. Nathaniel, or Nate, as he still insisted on being called, shadowed her, acting as her assistant in a way that felt more like a strange collaboration than a mentorship. She quickly realized that Nate wasn't just any intern. He was everywhere, in meetings she would never have been invited to, sitting at the same lunch table as the C-suite members, reviewing reports no intern should have had access to. And through it all, he never revealed his true identity. In fact, he remained insistently low profile, almost like he was a ghost among the shadows. Maya, however, wasn't blind to the way her colleagues treated her differently now. They were cordial, even somewhat respectful, when before she had been treated with cold indifference. Was it because she was helping the intern? Or was it something else? She couldn't tell. But things took a turn one Wednesday afternoon when Nathaniel asked her to meet him for coffee after work. "Come with me," he said in his usual quiet tone, pulling her to the side. "I need to talk to you about something serious." Maya's heart raced. What was this about? They sat down in a quiet corner of a cafe, away from the prying eyes of the office. "I've been thinking," Nathaniel started, his voice suddenly softer, "about your potential. You're bright, you're driven, and you've got something no one else has, the ability to connect. And that's something I need." Maya blinked. "What do you mean?" "Grant Technologies is looking for a new head of strategic communications. The position is yours, if you want it. I've seen what you can do, and I think you'd be perfect for it. But it's a big jump. You're going to have to leave everything behind." Maya sat there, stunned, unable to process what she was hearing. This couldn't be real. I don't have the qualifications for that. I've barely been here a week," she stammered. Nathaniel smiled. "Maya, you have what it takes. I've seen it. You've got heart. And that's more valuable than any resume or college degree." Maya felt a lump form in her throat. "But I don't belong in a place like this. You're not just anything," Nathaniel interrupted gently. "You're someone who has been overlooked her whole life. I was too, but this is your moment, if you're willing to take it." Her hands shook. Could this really be happening? Had this entire week been some kind of twisted test? Or had Nathaniel seen something in her that no one else had? Then, as if the decision were out of her hands, he slid a thick envelope across the table. It was embossed with the company's logo. "Here, inside this is your offer letter. Take your time. No pressure." She stared at the envelope for what seemed like hours. The idea of leaving her old life behind, the hours spent working two jobs, just scraping by, was terrifying. But the opportunity in front of her? The chance to change everything, to make something of herself, it was so much more than she'd ever dared to dream. I'll think about it," she finally managed to say. Nathaniel nodded. "Take all the time you need." Maya left that cafe feeling like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. She was faced with a decision that could change her life forever, and she couldn't escape the feeling that everything had been set in motion the moment Nathaniel first sat next to her. But little did she know, the real challenge was about to begin. She wasn't just being hired to lead a department. She was about to become the symbol of something much bigger, a reminder to everyone in the company that sometimes the most unlikely people are the ones who change the world. And that's where Maya's incredible journey begins. From overlooked single mom to head of a major department, her story is a testament to the fact that you never know where life will take you or who will recognize your worth. Maya's leap of faith wasn't just a career move. It was a reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected moments can lead to life-changing opportunities. If you were inspired by her story and want to hear more incredible comebacks and twists like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications so you never miss out on another amazing tale. Thank you for listening to Comeback Stories, where the impossible becomes possible. Now do this, please.